Welcome back to From the South. To discuss the events in Washington this Wednesday as Joe Biden took office as the 46th President of the United States, we now welcome Margaret Flowers, Director of Popular Assistance and a co-founder of the Embassy Protection Collective. Margaret, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Margaret, a presidential inauguration perhaps like no other seen before in the midst of the huge security deployment and the fears over possible violence in the wake of the events of January 6 at the US Capitol. What kind of message do you think this bodes for the new administration?
Well, I think we're in a very difficult time here in the United States, but to be honest, I think, it's normal for us to see security, high security during the inauguration. It's normal to see National Guard troops, and they're not in the numbers that we're seeing. But this really looks like a bit of an overkill because of the failures of the law enforcement agencies to take seriously the threats of what was going to happen on January 6th. And so they were unprepared and allowed them to invade the Capitol. The concerns are that this may be used as a mechanism of building support for stronger laws in the United States, and we don't need stronger laws. We have plenty of laws. What we know is when we have these types of domestic terrorism, quote unquote, laws that are passed, that they're often used against those of us on the left, on oppressed communities, to further oppress them.
Donald Trump left for Florida early this Wednesday. In the midst of his silencing on social media, which he's used for years to push his agenda, and given his statements in his farewell address that the movement he'd started is only just beginning, what do you think we can expect from Trump going forwards?
Well, I think one sign that's been somewhat encouraging is that they were calling for major protests at the state capitals around the country after January 6th, and that just didn't really seem to materialize. I think that former President Trump really made a mistake by telling his base that he would go with them to the Capitol and then staying behind as they went in and, faced the situation that they faced. And so there's a lot of division right now, I think, in the base that had supported President Trump. So I'm not sure that he will be the figurehead, but that real anger is still there. That kind of mentality is still there. And so I think it's important for us to continue to be vigilant. And, really, this is the time to take a real look at our law enforcement agencies and their ties to these right-wing extremist groups and militias and make serious changes to law enforcement in the United States.
Margaret, Joe Biden faces a series of major challenges on taking office, perhaps the most immediate being the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. He's pledged 100 million vaccine shots in his first 100 days in office. How likely do you think he's to meet this promise? And what are the key challenges he faces in the short term?
Well, I think that it's unlikely that we're going to see 100 million doses in the first 100 days. Right now, we have a shortage of the vaccine. But, I think one thing that is encouraging is he's calling for a national strategy. That's something that we have lacked completely in the United States. There's been no coordination to our strategy, no coordination to make sure that health professionals, essential workers have the protective equipment that they need. So that is possibly going to be better. I think what's poor sign is that he's putting his emphasis on reopening schools and businesses and not on taking the measures to make sure that people can quarantine when they need to, that they have the economic support to get through this time. Those are the crucial things that we need in this country if we're going to be able to get a handle on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Margaret, you're a co-founder of the Embassy Protection Collective, which was set up to defend Venezuela's diplomatic premises in the US Capitol following an attack by far-right sectors of the Venezuelan opposition with the support of the Trump administration. What do you think we can expect from President Biden in terms of relations with Venezuela?
Well, what we're already seeing and hearing, he invited Carlos Vecchio to attend the inauguration. Carlos Vecchio, as you well know, is wanted for violent crimes in Venezuela and is considered, or was recognized by the Trump administration as the ambassador to Venezuela. That is not a good sign. We also understand that he's going to recognize Juan Guaido, even though there's really literally no justification for doing that. So these are not good signs, but we are going to continue to push in the United States to stop the U.S.'s intervention in Latin American countries like Venezuela and to end the economic war that's being waged upon them.
And Margaret, in terms of Latin America and foreign policy, Biden has said that he's going to resume the path taken by Barack Obama in terms of relations with Cuba. Do you think that will happen, especially as just before leaving office, Trump added Cuba once again to the US unilateral list of state sponsors of terrorism?
Well, I think it is a positive sign that that happened under the Obama administration, that he's open to that. I do hope that Cuba will continue to talk with the United States about ways that they can improve their relationship and end the economic blockade. It's really time to end that blockade, and I hope that this is done in a genuine way and not in a way that's designed by United States to try to insert their interest into Cuba.
Margaret, Biden's spoken about immigration, climate change, and of course COVID as three of the key themes as he takes office. What do you think are the first steps that we can expect from this new administration?
Well, he's already outlined a broad range of executive orders that he's planning to sign later today, and then a whole series of regulations that they're going to be looking into. There was a lot of deregulation that occurred under the Trump administration that allowed corporations to be able to take over our public lands, to extract resources from them, to pollute, and those types of things. So it's a positive sign that that they've pledged to do that. Really, what we want to see here is action on these. I think that the goals that they have, unfortunately, for addressing the climate crisis are not as ambitious as we would like to see in terms of moving off of carbon. And so I think there's a lot that remains to be seen about what they actually do.
And Margaret, in terms of immigration, Trump is widely known for his tough stance on immigration and his continued promises to build a wall with Mexico. What do you think we can expect from Biden, who's already signaled that he's going to make changes in this area?
Right. Well, they're already, pledging to do things like ending the ban on travel from Muslim countries. He says he's looking into the border wall. We have to wait and see what it is that actually means. They're talking about the funding of the border wall, which was done in a possibly inappropriate way by the Trump administration. But what we would really like to see is no border wall at all. I'm not sure if that's what we're going to see from Joe Biden, but hopefully what we will see is better policies and maybe some adherence to human rights. Maybe standards would be nice, or even following the law would also be a positive thing in this situation. So we hope to see that there's better treatment. He is pledging a pathway to citizenship for immigrants, so that's a hopeful sign as well. But again, I think with all of this, with President Biden, we know that he's not going to go as far as we need him to go, and so we in the United States, many of us, are preparing to push him to go farther than he's intending.
Margaret, Trump in his final statements spoke about China and how he'd been tougher than any other US president in terms of China. Do you think we can expect much of a difference in terms of Biden's policy with China?
I don't think that's very likely. During the campaigning, President Biden and President Trump were both, kind of vying for who was going to be the hardest on China. China represents a huge threat to the United States' desire for global domination. Their economy is growing faster than ours. Their military and their technology are growing. So the United States would do well, I think, to move into not a Cold War with China, but more of a partnership with China. But unfortunately, I don't think that's what we're going to see from President Trump. Or Biden, I'm sorry.
Margaret, do you have any final thoughts in terms of what's to come in the United States with this new administration and based on Biden's first speech as president and his campaign pledges?
Well, just a couple of quick things. We are in a difficult period here in the United States. In so many ways, we're facing crises that have, been long time coming to roost here in the U.S. I'm not that optimistic that the Biden administration, without tremendous popular pressure, is going to take appropriate steps to mitigate these crises. But people are expecting that, and hopefully they'll be willing to fight for that now. But what happens with the United States as we see that our systems are breaking down, that we're losing our global domination. I think that this is kind of a tricky period for us right now.
Margaret Flowers speaking to us from Baltimore. Thank you so much for joining us today and for offering your insight into the events in the United States. Thank you.